Recognizes the gentleman from New York, Mr. Goldman.
Well, I agree with Mr. McDermott. Everybody in this room recognizes there's a right to self-defense, so I hope my colleague from California is permitted by his former colleagues to speak at the hearing on the California bill that is not a bill in this Congress. Mr. McDermott, I want to just clarify something you said. You said earlier on that in Chicago, the gun laws have not worked. I beg to differ. The Everytown gun law rankings that just came out, and I'm happy to introduce this, has Illinois, in terms of its gun law strength, at number 3. California's 1, Massachusetts 2, Illinois 3, my home state of New York 4. The problem with those states is that there is an iron pipeline where guns that are manufactured outside of those states are trafficked into those states. The ATF is the federal government agency that is charged, and I believe, Mr. Jackson, am I right, that the ATF is the only one with technology that can trace guns?
They're definitely the best at it.
Yeah, and so most local law enforcement send the guns to the ATF to trace so that they can figure out where they're coming from. That allows us to enforce federal laws against gun trafficking. Now, I want to raise a different point here because not only was Kash Patel recently confirmed to be the director of the FBI, he has never managed a local bakery, much less an institution of the size of the FBI. But then President Trump named him also to be the acting director of the ATF. Mr. Patel spoke at the inaugural summit of an organization called the Gun Owners of America, which says on its website that they advocate for abolishing the ATF. Mr. Jackson, briefly, can you just summarize what would happen if the ATF were abolished?
I mean, we would lose the ability to federally enforce rogue gun dealers, to focus on disrupting problematic iron pipelines, as you spoke of. There's multiple across the country, to prosecute gun traffickers. It would greatly handicap our background check system and our ability to identify and frankly deny dangerous sales of firearms. And most importantly, it will strip us of the ability to look out for emerging threats. We know that there are things like Glock switches and innovations that are happening every day that are making weapons more deadly.
Ghost guns as well. Now, that's not just a potential problem, that's a real problem because the president has issued an executive order to reevaluate every gun regulation that has been implemented by the Biden administration through Mr. Jackson and the excellent work and part of the Office of Gun Violence Prevention. Now, one of those rules is the engaged in the business of selling guns rule, which is clearly a target of my colleagues on the other side of the aisle. And it's pretty remarkable to me because that rule, which is often referred to as the zero tolerance policy, revokes federal firearm licenses for people who, one, willfully transfer a firearm to a prohibited person, someone who the law says is not allowed to own a gun. 2, fails to run a required background check. 3, falsify records. 4, fail to respond to a tracing request. Or 5, refuse to permit ATF to conduct an inspection in violation of the law. In other words, that regulation is designed solely to enforce the law. And yet, for some reason, that is a purported infringement on our Second Amendment rights. Ms. Mueller, I have a couple quick questions for you. Is there a Second Amendment right for a mentally ill person to own a firearm?
There isn't one that isn't.
Is there a Second Amendment right for, I just have a little time, for someone convicted of or with an outstanding order from domestic violence to own a gun?
Repeat the question, please.
Can someone who has committed domestic violence own a gun? Is there a Second Amendment right?
Gentleman's time has expired. You may
No,
answer the
sir.
question if you can. Thank you.
No, sir.
No, there's not. This is not a Second Amendment
Your
issue
time
that
has
we're
expired,
talking
sir. Thank you.